We're with Derrick Taylor of Taylor & Co. Events, and we are talking today about something that strikes fear in the hearts of many couples everywhere, which is rain on the wedding day. So Derrick, having so much experience and knowledge in the wedding industry, what are some tips that you can share with us on how people can handle rain on the wedding day?
Each venue comes with different options. So some hotels might have a junior ballroom that you might be able to have your ceremony in. If you have an outdoor ceremony scheduled, there are some resorts that come with a backup rain plan. The issue that most of our brides and grooms run into is when they're having a off-premise event. Off-premise means it's not in a facility that specializes in events, which would be either at a private home or an off-site place of some sort where there's not buildings there, where you're bringing in a tent. You either have to have a tent reserved or you have a tent on site already installed.
So having a backup plan is really the main thing that people need to think about before the wedding day, and not like the day before, but have some advanced planning.
If you're having your wedding outside, doesn't matter where it's going to be, you need to have a backup rain plan, just as a precaution, especially if you are, for say in Chicago, the weather here can change on a dime. Those backup plans can happen in one of three ways. You can either have a space on hold that you can move guests to. Some places can accommodate the space to have an extra tent put up, or you can have a tent on reserve for your backyard, and you can make that rain call on like a Wednesday or on a Thursday before the tent would go up.
What's involved in tenting a backyard?
So the first thing that you would need to do is reach out to one of the several wonderful tenting companies we have in Chicago, whether they be Blue Peak, Marquee, Indestructo. There's some great companies out there that I work with a lot when we do tenting.
How far ahead of time do you recommend people start planning for the tent as a backup plan?
Really, you would want to do that the second you decide that you're going to have an outdoor ceremony, to make sure that you can find a tenting company that is available so that you can reserve the tent. And I think a common misconception is that if you reserve the tent and you don't use it, that you don't necessarily have to pay for it. And you have to look at renting a tent for your wedding as buying insurance. And sometimes the insurance will have a claim and you will actually use the insurance. Sometimes you won't use the insurance. So if it's a day like today, it's beautiful outside. We would make that call if the next couple days are gonna be like this, have them not put the tent up. But if they don't put it up, you've still taken that tent out of that company's inventory. Therefore, you would have to pay for it.
How many people are we talking about are needed when it warrants a tent being rented?
Well, keep in mind that when you are, say, for instance, having a tent in your backyard. So the tenting company will send someone out to measure how big the tent can be for. And then they can tell you, okay, so you can have X amount of tables in this tent for dinner, which will constitute the fact that you might, maybe instead of having a sit-down dinner, you might want to have a cocktail party, because if you're going to have, say, 150 people in a tent that can only accommodate 100 people, obviously you're not going to have room for a dance floor, you're not going to have room for tables for 150, so you might want to do cocktail style reception where it's highboys and cabarets, and it's a little bit more roaming with some food stations versus a sit-down dinner. But the people from the tent company, when they come out, they'll tell you based on the size of where you're tenting, how many people you can accommodate. And you'll have to kind of retrofit your guest count to the space that you're having. It's just like in a ballroom. Some ballrooms can only accommodate 250 or 150 or even 100. And obviously you can't fit 200 people in a ballroom that only seats 100,
Mm-hmm. Aside from the tent, what if it becomes a better option to move the wedding?
So we've done that before too. And this is where I would highly suggest, having an outdoor wedding anyway, you should have a event planner. That's absolutely number one. There's too many logistics. There's too many different people loading in and loading out that day. And you need to have someone managing where people can park their trucks so that your guests aren't inconvenienced when they show up and so forth. But when the ceremony has to be moved, which I've done for my brother's wedding, it was not fun. We had to have somebody stay back at the house to let guests know when they show up, because not everybody, you can call and call and call. Not everybody's going to pick up. You can send emails. Not everybody's going to get their email, especially if you've got guests traveling in. So you need to either have some signage at the first venue, or you need to have someone there directing them to where the ceremony has been moved. And maybe even if you have the time, maybe even giving them a little printout with a little map or something.
Oh, that's a nice idea. I think when I'm out and about, the last thing I'm doing is checking my email, so that makes sense.
People are more worried about getting the directions right to get there, get there on time, sometimes not get there too early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about preparing for photography?
We had an instance where I did a wedding in Asheville, North Carolina at the Vanderbilt Mansion. And we were nervous because in the mountains, storms pop up like unannounced. It's kind of crazy. And so we decided that we were going to do a full day of photography the day before the wedding. And this gave the bride some options because she wanted to have her hair down for some of the photos and then up for the other photos. So we had, two completely different looks for makeup. We had two completely different looks for hair, and she even had two different bridal bouquets. And we did this whole excursion. It was a full day of photography at the Vanderbilt Mansion, which is, I believe it's the largest private home in the United States. Anyway, we got these amazing photos. It was all like magazine quality stuff. And as it turned out, they got a beautiful day on Friday and it poured down rain the day of their wedding. So it literally saved all of their wedding photos by going out on an excursion the day before. And it might be something, if you can swing it with your vendors, to schedule something like that the day before, if you've got the weather for it and you can move your rehearsal maybe to a Thursday, those types of things.
I've heard of people moving their rehearsals to Thursdays prior to the Saturday weddings, and I thought that was a really interesting idea. I hadn't heard much about that until recently, but people are feeling like it's taking a little bit of the pressure off from those events being back to back. And people still remember between Thursday and Saturday what they're supposed to do as far as the rehearsal.
Yeah, and there's usually somebody there that can direct people. Another trend that we're seeing is an earlier rehearsal either on a Wednesday or Thursday, and then sometimes a Friday being a welcome party.
That's nice.
Sometimes the bride and groom will attend that. Sometimes they won't even attend that. Sometimes it's just for the parents.
And people to mingle, guests who haven't seen each other in so long to reconnect. And what about the weather's impact on music?
There are certain types of string instruments like violins, cellos, basses and stuff like that that can't be outside if it's raining because it ruins the inside of the instrument because it's wood. And I had no idea. So you do need to if you're having live music, let your musicians know that it is outside. I don't know, I'm not sure if all musicians have like a cello that is for outside versus inside, or violins that are for outside versus inside. But I do know that it does make a difference in the way that those instruments are tuned. And if you are having an outdoor live music, some musicians will require a small tent regardless.
Okay.
For the musicians to be under.
Oh, okay.
So that's something to think about as well for now.
Yeah, a lot of logistics.
Yeah.
For
That's why
different
hire a
things.
planner, hire a planner, hire a planner.
What about the grass or the ground and the flooring when it starts to, be affected by the rain?
Yeah. We're dealing with this next weekend in Winnetka, where there was a water break under the lawn, and they've had to put down all new sod and new topsoil underneath. And when you walk out on the lawn, it's very spongy still because we've gotten a lot of rain. So we're actually having the tenting company put down a floor over the entire lawn where the wedding is going to be, and then we're covering it with AstroTurf. So it protects the new grass that's down there, so that after the wedding, the bride's family doesn't have to completely resod the whole lawn because it's just been, smashed by wedding guests walking all over it.
Okay, and it's better for people who are wearing spike heels.
Yeah, they do make a product. You can get them online. They're these little, I don't know, they remind me of the little things you put on the ends of a pool cue stick. They're like a upside down martini glass that sticks on the bottom of your heel, and it helps your heel not go in the sod. But if you get that, because there's so many different styles of heels, I think you have to get them in like 5 different styles for women to wear. I think most people know that if it's an outdoor wedding, that they're probably going to be on grass, and that maybe wearing a spiky stiletto heel might not be a good decision. But then again, sometimes people don't always think about those things.
Right, they don't realize it until they're in the moment.
Right.
So for that, I do recommend a wedge.
Yeah,
If it's not a flat, consider the wedge.
absolutely.
So for personal experience, you were helping your brother with his wedding, and you had an experience with the rain.
We did. It poured down rain for about a week and a half prior to my brother's wedding. And my father even considered trying to get pumps to pump the water off the grass. And it was like 5:30 in the morning of my brother's wedding, and I reached out to my sister-in-law. I called her and I said, listen, are we moving this thing, or are we gonna trudge through the mud? Because when we would go out and just step on the lawn, your foot would just sink. And nobody wants to wear their nice clothes and ruin expensive shoes in a muddy lawn all day long. So we ended up deciding that we were going to move it to, it was like the VFW hall in town. It was the only thing that was available. And at the time, I wasn't really thinking about a backup plan. This was many, many years ago. And so we ended up just moving all the things that we could from my parents' lawn to this venue. And we worked very fast, and we got it done, and it ended up turning out great. I now will pack some equipment on my truck when I do an outdoor wedding to make sure I have the bare bone equipment to do an indoor wedding ceremony, just in case now.
Okay, and then moving the decor and everything is a pretty simple task because you don't have to change the decor or anything, do you?
Sometimes you have to change the decor, yeah. So, case in point, if somebody's decor for their backdrop were hanging lanterns from a tree, and that was the only decor they have, and now you're moving it inside. Where do you hang those lanterns? So you need to have a plan B and sometimes a plan C if the venue doesn't have the things readily on hand to make plan A happen.
So you do weddings all over, and you were doing a wedding in Lake Geneva, and there was a concern with the lightning.
Yes.
What, can you tell us about that?
Yes. This was probably 11 years ago. And another good practice, outdoor wedding, is make sure somebody's monitoring the Doppler radar. Because when you're up by the Great Lakes and you're up by Lake Michigan and Lake Geneva up there, storms come in off the lake really fast, and it's kind of an anomaly up there. I've never seen storms come in so fast, and they're brutal. They only last like a few minutes and then they're gone. We saw the Doppler radar was like a purple black, which is like not good. And it looked like it was like right around like 4:45, and our ceremony was at 5. And so we made the call to move the ceremony from outside at the gazebo to inside. And the clients were not happy about it, but we looked at the radar, and there was no way that the storm was going to miss us. And it was nasty. It was like severe thunderstorm, maybe tornadoes. So we moved it inside, and as we were in the junior ballroom pre-function area, lining bridal party up. All the guests were inside. And when I tell you that this storm came, and it was like the second coming, it was like hail, cats and dogs coming down, and lightning struck this giant oak tree that was literally above where the guests would have been seated. And a giant oak limb, and you know, oak is heavy wood. And this limb was probably bigger than my box truck, came crashing down and smashed like 20 chairs.
Oh my God.
So we really lucked out.
Yeah, so there's that safety aspect too.
There's a safety aspect, yeah, for sure, yeah.
A great wedding planner is worth their weight in gold, saving you money, time, and unneeded stress. Derrick's creative vision and impeccable attention to detail turn every celebration into an exquisite event. Make an appointment to visit his stunning showroom, and you just might meet a four-legged friend or 2 or 3. Let Derrick and his team make your wedding dream a reality.